The Raditz arc of Dragon Ball is one I've never paid much attention to. Maybe it's because I've never really viewed it as its own story arc and rather just the beginning section of the Saiyan saga. Or maybe it's because I've seen Raditz get killed by the special beam cannon like 80 different times in video games and it kind of became a played out story beat to me. But after Akira Toriyama's passing, I rewatched the Kai version of that arc in honor of him and discovered something. When viewed with the original 194 chapters of the Dragon Ball manga in mind, it's actually a masterpiece in my opinion. Yes, it's only 11 chapters or 3 episodes of the anime, and yes, it predominantly only features 4 characters. But if Western audiences saw the original Dragon Ball before watching it for the first time, I believe it would be discussed a lot more as one of Toriyama's best. The second half of the original Dragon Ball manga, referred to as Dragon Ball Z, is radically different from the first half. Tone, setting, characters, and even Toriyama's writing and art style all changed dramatically, and most people believe it changed for the better. The Raditz arc is the perfect bridge between these two halves. So let's get into it. Part 1. Raditz's arrival. The original Dragon Ball is very much the story of Son Goku. We see him go into the outside world for the first time and grow steadily into an experienced martial artist who ends up saving the world time and time again. The focus of the story rarely leaves him, with some sections of the manga even having him carry the entire story with no strong supporting characters. This is why the people reading Dragon Ball at the time of its release, the first chapter of the Raditz arc 195 probably came as a surprise. It is an entire chapter without Goku. First of all, we learn that 5 years have passed since Goku's victory over Piccolo Jr. in the World Martial Arts Tournament. Time skips are common in Dragon Ball and are usually used to show physical rather than mental growth. But before the Saiyan saga, time skips only happened after pivotal moments in Goku's development. The first skip happens between the Fortune Teller Baba arc and the Tien Shinhan saga, when Goku's quest for the 4-star Dragon Ball has ended and he's revived Upa's father and also met his late grandfather, which ends his boyhood and begins the progression into a teenager. The second skip happens between the King Piccolo and Piccolo Jr. sagas, after Goku has defeated his first worldwide threat and starts training under Kami to make sure none of his friends die again, also accepting the responsibility of being Earth's protector from Piccolo Jr. This time skip happens after Goku defeats Piccolo Jr. and becomes the world champion, making his status as the world's greatest martial artist of all time official, and also rejecting the responsibility of being God in favor of living a simple life as a fighter and husband to Chi-Chi. After each time skip, the story has almost immediately placed focus back on Goku to show the audience how much he's grown, because that after all was his journey. This time skip is not only longer than the previous 2, 5 years compared to 3, but it also comes after an arc where most mangaka would probably end the story on. So the reader is expecting to see Goku right off the bat to see how much he's changed. However, the point of view is placed on a mysterious alien in strange armor who kills an innocent farmer and looks for someone named Kakarot. The only familiar character is Piccolo Jr., the villain of the previous arc, who is embarrassingly weaker than this new alien character. This chapter ends with the game-changing reveal that Kakarot and Goku are one and the same. This chapter feels alien not only because of the introduction of the first alien in Dragon Ball, but also because it's such an experimental chapter. A chapter like this was never done before, as the point of view pretty much never left Goku in the original Dragon Ball. It's a sign of things to come in the second half, as characters like Piccolo, Krillin, Trunks, and especially Gohan and Vegeta get extra focus and are essentially the main characters. Essentially, the first half of Dragon Ball was Goku's story, while the second half, Dragon Ball Z, is the story of the Z Fighters. The part of the Raditz arc that's probably most underrated to Western audiences is the reveal of Goku's alien origin. To us, Goku's always been a Saiyan, and we have that hindsight when watching the original Dragon Ball. It's never been a mystery where Goku came from to us, since the reveal happened at the same time we were introduced to him. But to people reading at the time, the revelation was a game changer. The setting of Dragon Ball was mystical, with ancient Chinese myth and folklore inspirations, with the initial story specifically being based on Sun Wukong and the journey to the West. Everything from names to outfits and even the themes stem from Eastern Taoist and Buddhist culture. This all changes when Raditz arrives at the Kame House. With a few bits of natural exposition, everything concerning Goku's mysterious strength and odd tale from the original Dragon Ball is recontextualized. The initial reveal that Goku and this alien have some sort of connection is genius, with Raditz unwrapping his tail and smacking Krillin away. This new menace uses his most alienating feature, his tail, to attack Goku's best friend, a human who, in a sense, represents the best the species has to offer, as well as the connections that Goku's made over the years. This one scene encapsulates the tone shift in the Saiyan saga. These enemies are ruthless, uncaring towards all life, and battle-thirsty. One part of this exposition that may feel unnatural to some is Master Roshi keeping Goku's secret origin from him until he is well into adulthood. However, I believe it is totally in character for Master Roshi and Grandpa Gohan to keep such a thing secret from Goku. They probably wanted Goku to live a happy, albeit ignorant life as a human child, unburdened by his possible alien origins. This is in line with Roshi's ideology and the thematic ideology of the original Dragon Ball, of allowing the new generation to forge their own paths, regardless of what happened in the past. Clearly, the Saiyans do not share this concern about fostering the youth, as they send their young to alien planets as mere children, not allowing them to make their own decisions. Raditz also exemplifies his disregard for children when he kidnaps the 4-year-old Gohan and gives Goku a macabre ultimatum: kill 100 humans and defect to the Saiyans, or Gohan dies. With his body beaten and his mind bombarded with unwanted information, all hope for Goku seems lost. Until Piccolo Jr. arrives to offer his temporary help. This act of camaraderie between two Earthlings sets up the theme of the Saiyan saga. That is, that the Saiyans are worse off because of their survival of the fittest selfish ideology, and that it's better to have allies and friends than to be cruel and alone because of that cruelty. It's because the Saiyans fail to understand this that they end up losing. The fact that it's Piccolo Jr., the villain of the previous arc, is also beautiful in his own right for 4 reasons. First of all, the idea that even sworn enemies can unite to protect something they both care about, in this case the Earth, is narratively compelling. Second of all, it shows comparatively how serious of a threat these Saiyans are, that Goku has to resort to uniting with a villain, let alone one that is a reincarnation of the man who killed his best friend and his master. Third of all, it uses one of my favorite Dragon Ball tropes, the trope of a character being rewarded for his kindness. In the 23rd World Tournament arc, Goku refused to kill Piccolo, even with a literally god at his side telling him to do so. Because of that, Goku now has a strong ally with him against the Saiyans. Finally, it sets up Piccolo Jr.'s redemption arc. Since his introduction the arc prior, Toriyama has planted seeds that Piccolo Jr. is more than his father's son, and has a will beyond his sworn duty to kill Goku. From him following the rules of the tournament to respecting Krillin as a fighter, he does things his father never would, although he insists it's all with the goal of killing Goku in mind. This action of partnering up with Goku especially would have made Piccolo Sr.'s stomach turn. But Jr. swallows his pride to save the Earth, in effect setting him down on the path of redemption and independence from his dad's wishes. This theme of a new generation making their own destiny, unburdened by the past generation's expectations of them, started in the Tenshinhan saga, and it still lingers in Dragon Ball to this day. But it arguably reaches peak with Piccolo's sacrifice later in the Saiyan saga, which this scene sets the foundation for beautifully. One of the defining themes of Dragon Ball is the meaning of power, specifically whether power is made or simply natural. As Goku and Piccolo approach Raditz, there is a short scene that demonstrates the ideology that the antagonists of both the Saiyan and Frieza sagas have regarding one of Dragon Ball's most famous concepts, power levels. An entire subset of the Dragon Ball community has sprung up around calculating the power levels of characters. And while that is fun, I think the narrative aspect of power levels is vastly underappreciated. They serve as a distinction between the Z fighters and the antagonists, highlighting their different philosophies. In the past, the villains have underestimated Goku and the gang for various reasons: their size, their age, their school, or even their species. But none of them are as simple yet dismissive as power levels. It's an easy concept. If your number is higher, you win. If it's lower, you lose. And although the phrase power levels are bullshit is popular among the fandom, technically they're not. Every scouter reading has factually showed the current power level output of the target. And you might think that makes every fight with power levels boringly predictable. However, it's the ideology that Saiyans and Space Warriors attach to power levels that makes them wrong, and also makes fights more complicated than they seem. They believe that they are born with their power levels. Their battle power may be shaped by some experiences, but they don't train because they believe that their amount of strength was decided at birth. Scouter readings don't factor in your strategy or your ability to improve.
They believe if your number is lower, you are weaker, and thus will lose any given confrontation with someone with a bigger power level. Of course, we the audience, having watched the original Dragon Ball, know that's ridiculous. People can change and improve, and the winner of any given fight can't be decided by a machine. But Goku and Piccolo have to prove that.
While Goku and Piccolo are discussing how to get around Raditz's scouter, Raditz himself gets a shocking reading, a power level of 710 from Gohan, higher than Goku or Piccolo. Raditz brushes it off, believing that his scouter must be broken. But then a moment later, Raditz picks up 2 readings identical to both Goku and Piccolo, headed right for him. But he concludes again that his scouter must be broken, since there's no way that Kakarot would be stupid enough to challenge him again. But then, they arrive. Their arrival and the removal of their weighted clothing, revealing a greater power level, shows their opposition to this fatalistic philosophy the Saiyans have. However, their skirmish with Raditz ends up with him on top, and that, as well as the reveal that there are 2 even stronger Saiyans, shows that Goku and Piccolo haven't been proven correct yet. As the fight progresses, it becomes clear the change occurring in Dragon Ball's fights, specifically in the role that the protagonist plays having been shifted. In the original Dragon Ball, Goku was a martial arts prodigy with mysterious strength. Assuming that it was a fair matchup and Goku was well fed, it was essential that he would win. Even in unfair matchups against people who were much stronger or had much more experience, like Tao Pai Pai or King Piccolo, he would still be saved from certain death by chance. It was because of Goku's incredible power that often the tension of fights rested on the enemies trying to find out a way to get around the power gap to beat him. In the latter half of the original Dragon Ball, more enemies were introduced that could equal or even surpass Goku in terms of power, like Grandpa Gohan, Tien, and the Piccolos. And even then, these enemies would often only win by exploiting one of Goku's blind spots. And in those cases, the narrative takeaway would be that Goku needs to train more to take care of his blind spots, which he would promptly do, and then catch up with his foes pretty quickly. Goku vs Piccolo was a fight that had high stakes, no second chances, and was between 2 equal opponents. Although Goku was heavily battered, he had no outside help, and he still gave Piccolo some significant battle scars. Essentially, he took away all his weaknesses to become the best fighter he can be, and the best fighter in the world. But the fight with Raditz shows just how insignificant that achievement is compared to the strength of the Space Warriors. In contrast with the fights from earlier in the series, Goku is on the back foot, and Raditz is the one who's immensely stronger. The question is not how could Raditz beat Goku, but how could Goku possibly beat Raditz? It's fitting that a member of Goku's own species and family is the one to finally put him in this position. An example of this shift is when Piccolo loses his arm shortly after this fight begins, in contrast to when he last lost his arm in the final act of his fight against Goku. So the question is, if you removed all your weaknesses, you trained to your absolute limit, you're the best you can possibly be, and you're still not good enough, what do you do then? Piccolo has a technique that will kill Raditz, but he needs to charge for 3 minutes. Goku has to give it all he's got and rely on his teammate to survive and save his son. At this point, the Saiyan's faulty ideology about power levels being static comes to the forefront. Goku temporarily breaks his limits by reaching the power level of 950, which should be impossible according to Saiyan ideology. This ability to change power levels at will without transforming is completely alien to Raditz, and is only capable by Goku due to his time on Earth training under wise masters who also taught him to be open to new possibilities. Piccolo also breaks past his own limits and Raditz's with the Makanko Sapo, but he misses. At this point, when Piccolo is out of energy and can only charge one more time, and Goku is completely exhausted, all hope seems lost. But Raditz's own Saiyan physiology flips the script yet again. This moment almost parallels certain moments from the original Dragon Ball, where victory was almost in Goku's fingertips, but yet again his tail, Saiyan biology, ended up doing him in. It was this continuous failure due to his tail that caused Kami to cut it off permanently to further Goku's growth. The lack of Goku's tail, the representation of his Saiyan blood, and the organ that allows them to express their cruelest side is ridiculed by Raditz earlier in the arc, which only makes Goku grabbing Raditz's tail to stun him even more cathartic. However, it's the same Earth that gave Goku the ability to break his limits and prevented his downfall at the hands of his tail, that gave him the kindness that his enemies exploit. Raditz uses the kindness that he knows Goku has by now, the kindness that makes him the rarest breed of Saiyan, to escape and retaliate against him. The contradiction between Raditz's cruel attitude just a few hours ago and his words now must have been obvious to Piccolo, somebody who's seen the worst of humanity. But to Goku it made sense at that point. He personally saw a jealous cheater, a thieving bandit, and a ruthless assassin in training turn into the best people the world had to offer. Naturally, he believes that anyone can change for the better. But one thing he learns in the Saiyan and Frieza sagas is that there are some people who are just so misguided in their own beliefs, so far gone,
that they're better off dead for other people's sake. When Gohan arrives on Kame House with his father, it's like the reader is invited to compare him to Kid Goku from the beginning of Dragon Ball. Gohan, despite looking similar to his father when he was a child, is opposite to him in many ways. He's gentler, more shy, and weaker than his father was. He doesn't seem like the type to be a main character, or let alone live up to his father's legacy.
But that's what Toriyama wants you to believe.
Throughout the fight, Gohan is helplessly in prison, a child trapped in a space pod, forced to watch his father die trying to save him. In a way, this kind of proves Raditz right about this clash between the nature of Saiyans and the nurture of Earth. Saiyans send their young to conquer planets to forge their warrior spirits. Gohan lived in a time of peace and was loved by his parents, which potentially stifled his growth as a Saiyan warrior.
However, Gohan's real potential lies in his earthling heritage.
The quality he uses to succeed and surpass his father and eventually become the protagonist of Dragon Ball is his compassion. The compassion that he has more than anybody else in the series is the fuel for his growth time and time again. And the first time we see him use it is in this arc. Calling back to the beginning of the fight, Raditz reads a power level larger than his own within Gohan's pod. And then in one action, Gohan attacks Raditz, frees his father, and proves Raditz wrong. Although Raditz's underhanded tactics briefly gave him the upper hand, it was Gohan's genuine love for his father that ended up winning the war. The Saiyans, as shown by Raditz's attempt to kill Gohan, are a selfish, egotistical group of warriors who would gladly kill one of their own to protect their own ego. In contrast, Earth turned one of its would-be conquerors into someone who would gladly die to protect the needs of the many. Goku grabs Raditz and stays there to keep Raditz from dodging the special beam cannon, the only technique that can kill him. Raditz can't comprehend the selflessness, being raised to disregard all life except for his own and expecting Goku to be the same. And how tragic is it that Goku's death ended up being at the hands of his arch-nemesis, but not in a battle against each other over the Earth, but in a battle together to protect it. Goku's death is such an impactful moment that can't be understood if you've only seen Z. The protagonist whose struggles and journeys we've seen firsthand dies to protect his planet from his own brother. Even though we know Goku can be brought back by the Dragon Balls, it's still a sign of the tone shift and how serious things are going to become. It's also the moment where Goku relinquishes his role as the most important character of the story. In the following training arc, we see his son's growth more than his. And in the fight with the Saiyans and beyond, we see the point of view being placed on Krillin, Piccolo, Gohan, Vegeta, and other characters, with Goku mostly taking a back seat until he arrives for the final fight. With the Saiyans on their way, Piccolo taking Gohan, and Goku starting his journey on Snake Way, Goku's childhood is officially over, and the story of his adulthood begins.